Advice. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Dannphan's advice video. Today we're covering the subject of your audience and how do you get to know your audience before you actually go about starting your project. Some people might consider this topic to be more so on advice on like business and marketing, but I do think that it's important to have some basic understanding of this before you just jump into writing something, because anyone who's in the creative field needs to have a basic understanding of business and marketing in order to actually get yourself noticed. So for those of you who have a social media presence or are involved in any communities online, that's essentially the audience that you've been building up all this time. Whether or not you want to use that audience or rebuild a different audience is entirely up to you, depending on what kind of stories you want to be telling. If you are starting an audience from scratch, you're going to want to get involved in the communities that are related to whatever kind of book or story you're trying to push. So obviously, if you wanted to write a gay romantic comedy comic, then you're gonna want to push that on Webtoons and Tapastic, because Lord knows they love those. But legitimately, getting involved in those communities would help you sell that comic, because that's where those communities are. That's where the people who would enjoy that comic, they're just like fish in this little pond, and you're gonna wanna throw some bait out to them. Now keep in mind, just because that audience likes your romantic comedy, that doesn't mean that they're going to like your horror comic that you also have been writing on the side. So whatever audience you decide to focus on as your main audience, you'll also have to focus on what they like in their stories more than, say, other stories. That's not to say that you can't do different stories in different genres, heck knows I do, but you need to also realize that those stories might not appeal to your main audience, so you might see a drop in viewership or a drop in numbers. You could theoretically try to expand to all kinds of different audiences and hit different genres, but you'll probably see less success as you would if you just focused on one type of genre, one type of audience. Because people who are attracted to a certain niche are very loyal to that niche. So let's say you already have an audience built up, maybe you make videos on YouTube, or maybe you just have a Twitter account where you voice your opinions, or an Instagram account where you post your art and there are people who follow you who will buy your stuff. That's a potential audience. You should get to know who those people are who are following you, who are subscribed to you. It's one of the good things about YouTube because they got an analytics page. So this is my analytics. You see I spread out types of cultures, different countries. Hey, India. Oh, this right here is just a crime. Who's not subscribed? So this section right here is pretty important. You know, I got a much larger male following than a female following, and people who watch my videos typically tend to be within my own age group, which I can probably expect. So you can use age and gender to figure out what genre your audience would most likely like based on statistics, which of course I know statistics aren't always a surefire thing, but they can be useful. For example, men are more likely to enjoy like heavy action type stories, women are more likely to enjoy romantic comedies, stuff like that. You might want to look into those statistics if you just want a glimpse into your audience, but another thing that you could do is do polls. Polls are very basic, and they're not always going to be super accurate because, you know, how many people are going to see the poll, how many people are going to participate in the poll. Is this an accurate depiction of what my audience is going to actually look like? But you could argue that polls might be more accurate than just going based on statistics, because you're asking them directly, what do you want, what do you like? For the record, some people were mentioning how I didn't have horror on this one poll. I consider edgy and deep to be the closest thing I can write to horror. I don't have a lot of experience with horror. I'm more so all about the psychological or thrillers, but not necessarily the spooky, scary skeleton type zombie, you know, all the cliche list here types of horror. I'm not super familiar with those. But the teenage me can still definitely write edgy and deep stuff. Yes, it's true, the teenager never truly dies. You can also make posts about your comics, see how much interaction it gets. This one got a pretty good bit in comparison with my other posts, so that tells me that people are probably quite interested in this comic idea that I have. So if I were to continue using myself as an example, my first comic campaign was Orgasm Girl. The idea behind doing that as the first campaign being that I've had multiple videos where I talk about sexuality in comics, in media, and in art, and those videos typically did pretty well view-wise, and I knew that there were a lot of men who watched my videos, men who might like some eye candy, but overall just a lot of people who are interested in that topic that I thought I could sell Orgasm Girl to. But it was still a gamble regardless, and not the comic that I wanted to do for my first campaign, because it's a type of niche that could easily scare people away, and I feel like because it was aimed at a specific part of my audience, it wasn't really hitting the broad audience. So I might have missed out on a lot of people who would have backed a campaign for me had it been a different comic. But it was a successful campaign, and you know, it worked out. And I think when I try to do a more action adventure based comic like the cyberpunk one that I showed you before, I think this might probably show more interest because it might hit a bigger section of my audience. But a lot of it also depends on me, how I market my comics and how I'm able to sell to you the comics. Just because people are interested in seeing an action adventure comic, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be interested in the idea for the comic. That doesn't mean that maybe they don't like the art style, maybe they don't like, I don't know, the page count, maybe it's too expensive for them, they're not interested in picking up a graphic novel at the time. There's a lot of factors that you really can't control, but what you can control is understanding what your audience wants, doing your research, getting in contact with people who follow you. Another thing is live streams, if you are a YouTuber, assuming of course. Live streams are something that I enjoy doing, mainly just because I get to talk directly to my audience and I kind of get an idea of who's a die-hard watcher who will watch all my videos no matter what the subject is about just because they enjoy hearing what I have to say. And while I'm live, I can like read their comments and then respond directly to them, and we can just have like full conversations from a video that was originally like nothing, no topic, but I start reading the chat and before you know it, we're bouncing from one topic to another, to another, to another, and I'm learning more about what my subscribers find interesting and what they like talking about. And that's all important stuff. But I do think looking into your analytics, doing your research on what genres appeal to what gender, what genres appeal to what age group, all of these things help you understand what type of comic or project or story is going to show more success based on the audience that you've been accumulating. Now, like I said, you can craft your own audience, but you have to get involved with communities. You have to use the right hashtags, you have to go to the right sites. If you're an artist, you gotta draw the right stuff that's going to be picking up these people that you want as your audience. Essentially, you're going fishing to get followers, specifically followers who will be your loyal buyers, people who will want to buy your stuff because you are selling something that is interesting to them. Not everyone is going to buy something from you just because they're interested in you. You have to meet them halfway and also find something that's interesting to them. But anyway, that's just a short video rant about how you can get to know your audience. Hopefully you guys find that to be helpful. Of course, if you have your own opinions on the matter or your own advice, leave them down below in the comments section so that we can continue the conversation. And if you did enjoy this video, remember to like the video as it does help out the channel. More videos are coming up real soon, guys. Till then, thanks for watching and goodbye.
Program restart.